Hello and welcome back to my channel, All the Stories. Today I will be giving you my March TBR. So I am participating in a readathon in March, and it is the War Games. So for this readathon, you have to choose 3 paths. You have the light path, the gray path, and the dark path. And then within those 3 paths, you have 3 different kind of like book characters, like tropes, like the Temptress or the Dark Lord or the hero, the chosen one, blah blah blah. So within each path you have 3 different characters, and you have to do you can choose one of the characters and do the prompts for that character. So I chose the dark path, and the character that I chose to do the prompts for is the Temptress, because I just kind of looked at my TBR file and tried to pick a path that matched most of the books that I already was planning on reading this month. So the Temptress actually lined up with a lot of the books that I wanted to read, so I chose to do that path. So the host for the dark path is Erin from Booktuber Busy, so I'll link her announcement video down below if you want to know more about the readathon. But each path, the dark path, light path, and gray path, each have their own host, and each host made their own video. So actually I'll just link all 3 of the videos down below if you want to participate and want to see more about the different challenges you could choose or whatever. So I am doing the Temptress path. So there are 5 challenges, 5 books to talk about. And I also am just going to mention a few more books that I want to read in March in general. But first, let's just talk about the books that I'm reading for the War Games. So for the path of the Temptress, the first challenge is to read a new release. So for that, I will be reading Lore by Alexandra Bracken. This is the Fairy Loot edition, so a little washed out by my ring light. This is the Fairy Loot edition, and I love this edition so much. I actually do kind of like the original cover better, the head of, like, the statue of the head of Medusa. But I like this cover as well. It's just a little bland for me, but the book overall has so many perks that I don't even care. So this is the cover. Then it has these beautiful stencil sprayed edges. Then the spine has that same design as the sprayed edges with the foiled like snakes, and then it also has like these marble end papers. It is stamp signed by the author. There is art under the dust jacket, and the spine says the games have begun and she is playing for her life. And then there's also a stamp on the cover, and this edition is so pretty. Super excited about it. My first Fairy Loot book. But anyways, this is what I'm going to be reading for the challenge, a new release. It came out in January, and I am super excited to get to it. So this book is Greek mythology inspired, and it takes place in modern day New York City. And in this world, the gods have been punished. So every 7 years for a whole week straight, the gods are forced down into the mortal world, and the mortals are allowed to hunt and kill the gods for this 1 week. So it follows our main character Laura, whose parents were brutally murdered. So she just has been surviving, and one day during this week where the hunts are happening, Athena shows up on Laura's doorstep and is gravely injured. And that's kind of all I know. I don't even know what like the rest of the plot is. That's all I know about this, but that sounds so interesting, and I've heard very good things about about this book from all the people who have read it so far. So challenge number 2 is to read from a new author. So I will be reading These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in 1920s Shanghai, and that sounds so good. This was a book that came out last year, and I was super excited about it. It is, of course, a new to me author because this is Chloe Gong's debut, so this is her only book. So I've never read anything else by her, and I am just really excited. That sounds really interesting. And again, I've heard very, very good reviews. And the cover for the sequel just came out as well, so everyone's like buzzing about the series, and I can't wait to give it a try. But I am kind of curious as to where the story goes, because if it's a Romeo and Juliet retelling, then I kind of figure how it's going to end. But then I didn't know this was a series, and then there's a book too, so now I'm intrigued. So challenge number 3 is to read a grimdark true crime or a horror, and I decided to read a grimdark fantasy book, and that is The Poppy War. Just kidding. The Dragon Republic by R.F. Fong, which is the sequel to The Poppy War. This is very grimdark. It is a very gritty, dark fantasy world and a gritty, dark story in general, and I'm pretty sure this 100% counts as grimdark. So I loved The Poppy War. It was one of my favorite books I read last year, and I cannot wait to read The Dragon Republic. This book is on my 21 books to read in 2021 list, and I'm super excited about it because the first book was that book, and I'm really excited to see where the story goes after the ending of last book and what Ren did. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. But the plot of the series of the Poppy War is it follows Ren, who is a orphan, and she wants to go to the most prestigious like soldier training school in this land, War Academy. Can't remember what it's called, but she wants to go there, but you have to get a really high test score, and Ren ends up making a perfect score, so she is accepted to this military academy, and a war breaks out, and that's kind of all you really need to know. And it is so good, so dark, so gritty, so gruesome, but so good, and I can't wait to finish the series. So challenge number 4 is to read a sci-fi, and for the entire War Games, the group book, the book that inspired this readathon is Red Rising, so that's the group book, but I have already read Red Rising, so for this challenge to read a sci-fi, I decided to go ahead and read the sequel to Red Rising, which is Golden Sun by Pierce Brown, and I am really excited to get to this one as well because I enjoyed Red Rising. It wasn't my favorite because, I don't know, the plot was a little stop and go, a little slow. I lost a little interest in the middle. But I did overall really enjoy the story, if that makes sense, and where it ended. And I'm excited to see where it's going. And I enjoyed the world, what we saw of the world and the characters. So I really enjoyed them. And I can't wait to see where this goes because the way it ended, I can tell the story is about to pick up in this book. And I'm super excited about it. So Golden Sun is definitely my pick for Read a Sci-Fi. So the last challenge is to read a Booktuber recommendation, and I mentioned that the Dark Pass, what's the word? Host, the Dark Pass leader is Erin from Booked and Busy. So I decided to use her as a recommendation, and one of the books that she raves about and just talks about constantly is the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, but specifically Royal Assassin. So I did read Assassin's Apprentice last year, so now I'm finally going to continue and read Royal Assassin, and this is the book out of the series that she just raves and rants about. It's her favorite, and it was like her top 2 of 2020. It was this book, just under my other favorite, which was The Rage of Dragons. So obviously she has taste. So I can't wait to read Royal Assassin and see what's going to happen to Fitz, because Fitz just went through it in book 1, and and then she always talks about how Fitz just goes through it through the whole series. So I'm really excited to see what happens. Well, maybe not excited. Excited is the wrong word because poor Fitz. But I'm really excited to continue with this series and see what happens. And this book is chunky compared to the first book. It's like substantially longer. And actually all like 5 of the books that I'm choosing to read for this readathon are pretty long. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, it's 5 books, and over the course of the month, I'm pretty sure I can finish all those. But there are some more books that I want to read in March. So 3 of the books that I want to get to in March are all books that I've already started and just want to go ahead and finish. And the first is my reread of The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, which is the first book in the First Era Mistborn series. And I did start this last year and put it down, just never picked it back up. But I do want to go ahead and continue my reread because I want to read all the books in the Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson this year. So I want to finish my reread of this so I can go ahead and move on to some more books by him. So I can, you know, get this. Since there are 14 books by him I want to read this year, I need to go ahead and get the ball rolling since it's already March. With that being said, I also want to read Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This is his first novel, I believe, and it is a standalone in his Cosmere world, so I'm going to go ahead and get this one out of the way as well. I don't actually know anything about what this book's about, besides that it's in the Cosmere. Oh, I never mentioned what Mistborn's about. But I don't know anything about what Elantris is about. But Mistborn, it follows our main character. Well, it follows multiple main characters, mainly Kelsier and Ren, but like a host of main characters that you kind of follow. And Ren is the main character, and she is a, what's the word? She is a Mistborn. And that means, like, in this world, there is allomantic magic, and that is magic controlled by metals. So there are like 5 different metals that you can use, and each metal you have to swallow it, and it gives you a different power. And most people can only access one of the powers using one of the metals, and those people are called Mistlings. But there are special people who are called Mistborn that can use all the metals and access all those powers. And Ren is a Ren. And what? I completely lost the girl's name. Vin. Now I feel like I'm making that up though because it sounds so similar to Ren. Is it Vin? Is her name Vin? That's right. Okay, Vin is our main character that we're following, and she is a Mistborn, and she doesn't really know this. She discovers it over the course of the book because another Mistborn named Kelsier kind of takes him under his wing because he needs her for a mission. This is a heist book, and it follows Kelsier and this team of special people he has brought together to achieve the ultimate heist and steal from the Lord Ruler. Because in this world, the Dark Lord, the Lord Ruler, has actually already won and he is ruling everything. So it's kind of like a dark time for the people. And they are trying to overthrow the Lord Ruler. And it's just kind of like it's a very like cool story. Another book that I'd already started back in January and then put on hold when I was reading all my books for February was, I just realized that I don't have the cover. Where's the cover for this book? So that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This is a book that I started back in January, and I was loving it. It was getting me out of my reading slump, helped give me a little... Of course, my mother is calling me right now. So this is a adult fantasy, and it follows our main character who is like a social worker for magical children, and he has been sent to this orphanage to just kind of see if the children in this orphanage are being taken care of and everything's okay. But it's just so cute and so sweet. Like, all the kids in here are just sweet little cinnamon rolls, and you just want to hug them and tell them everything's gonna be okay. And I'm really loving this so far, and I definitely want to finish it. I think I'm pretty far through it. I'm on page 294, and it's like 390, 400, close to 400 pages. So I'm like 150 pages away from being done. So I definitely want to finish this in March. And then I also want to finish my read of Crush because I started this back in October, and I not started it, just kind of wanted to see, because the last part left out on a kind of a cliffhanger, so I wanted to see what happened. So I got to the part where the cliffhanger from last book was resolved, so like I'm only on page, okay, I read a little more than I thought. I'm on page 134, and I want to go ahead and get this done because the sequel, the third book in the series, Covet, I think is the name, Covet. Yeah, Covet comes out in March. So I kind of just wanted to go ahead and get this done with in case I liked it enough to want to read the third book when it comes out. That makes sense? Yeah. But this is a YA vampire, werewolf, dragon boarding school fantasy. Yeah. So another book where the sequel comes out in March, and I just wanted to read the book before the sequel came out, is Fireborn by Rosaria Munda, and this is a dragon rider fantasy story, and we all know I love dragons on this channel. So I can't wait to read this, and the sequel, book 2 in this series comes out in March. So I wanted to go ahead and read this, and I think this is just like follows two characters who have gone to this dragon rider academy, and then war breaks out and they have to choose sides and they might be at odds with each other. But I'm really excited about this. I have heard good things about this book from, I think it was Reagan at Peru's Project was talking about this book. I could be wrong. But good things I've heard about this book, and I'm really excited to read more dragon books. And last but not least, I want to start my reread of A Torch Against the Night by Sabatier. So for the Emperor and the After series, I only ever read books 1 and 2, and I read them years ago. I think I started 1 and 2 at the time. Book 2 had just come out. So 2, 3 years, 4 years ago, I'm not sure. But I read 1 and 2, and then I took a break from reading. That was back when I wasn't reading consistently, and I didn't read for a while, and then book 3 came out in that time period where I wasn't really reading a lot because I was in college, and book 4 just came out last year. So I just decided to go ahead and like start the series up again because the last book came out, so the series was complete. So I reread book 1 last year, and I'm going to reread this one now, and I finally have all the books because I got the Fairy Loot editions. This is the Fairy Loot edition of A Torch Against the Night. It has the UK cover and then the sprayed and stenciled edges, and it's really pretty. Can't wait to reread this so I can go ahead and read book 3 and 4 for the first time. and I'm just so ready for the rest of the series because everyone raves about this series, and then I saw everyone's reactions for book 4 recently when it came out a few months ago, so I'm just super excited to finally finish the series. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you're participating in the war games, what path you're doing, what character you're doing, what books you're reading, or what books you just want to read in March in general. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!